The US and China war is all over the news, and semiconductor is a growing market.
Semiconductor ambitions are.
Why this then US, China, and they always keep fighting for these chips?
Whenever there's a demand, there's a supply issues. Whenever there's supply is more, there's no demand. This seems to be the chain that everybody has gone through. So is the semiconductor life cycle as well.
Why still India lags behind? Like the resources what we have in India, the land which we have in India, we could have done this in a more better way, I think. Like where did we lag?
It's something like, one mother can give a birth in 9 months. 9 mothers cannot give a birth in 1 month. So there is a gestation period. So I think we have to evolve.
From the time when you started, what is one thing which you realized that this is one segment which can grow very big?
The last tip that I taped out or probably involved was 12 billion transistors, excluding the memories.
12 billion transistors in one chip.
In one chip.
Right? It's not, the aim is not to becoming a rich. Aim is to create an employment. Aim is to make sure that you grow with the society.
Like who is the biggest manufacturer and exporter of chips as of now? The US and China war is all over the news, and semiconductor is a growing market. So today I have someone with me who has built into the semiconductor industry across 3 continents and currently a founder of a company called Chiplogic. Today we have Mr. Ranganath with us, a person who has been into this industry from past 25 years, working from across UK, India and across different continents, building across the semiconductor and chip industry. Welcome Ranganath, how are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good, I'm great. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, I'll start with this. You were a Wipro trainee in 1998.
Yes.
And then you ended up working and founding multiple companies, 2-3 companies across 3 different continents, which is US, Europe, UK. Like how has been a journey for you? Like where you come from? How did you ended up being in this industry? How are things going as of now for you?
Okay, yeah, thank you. My name is Ranganath Kempanahally. People call me RK. I'm from this place called Kempanahally, which is a small village in Karnataka near Davangere. I'm from a farming family, so obviously studied in a Kannada medium, as until high school. Then, during the formative days of my life, I didn't know the difference between ITI and IIT, right? So that's a level of education that was given to us at the beginning. And so then I moved to college in a place called Shimoga, which is a district headquarter, and that's where I realized that something new that I can that's where I kind of exposed to a little bit of world. Then I did my bachelor's in electronics and master's in electronics. I didn't know what I was actually doing. I kind of took my life as it comes, and I fortunately ended up in Wipro as an embedded systems engineer, as a trainee to begin with. And that's when actually I was upset, to be honest. I was not very happy to get into a embedded system without knowing the real value of embedded system. Because at that time, we thought knowing C, C++ is an important thing, and I was decent at some of these C, C++ languages. I was hoping that I would probably make my career in C, C++. Even when they had interviewed me, they had asked a lot of questions related to linked list and all of that, which I was able to answer. I thought, okay, probably I would be, given an opportunity in C, C++. But when they exposed me to this VLSI, initially I was upset, but then my senior colleagues and senior friends told me that, this is probably the best field that one can get into. And that's how I started and ended up becoming a VLSI engineer. So I started as a trainee, and then I went and joined a startup company in Hyderabad. And from that company, I went to US. I worked in US for a couple of years. And then from there, I moved to UK. And UK, I worked as a consultant for a few years. And then I did an executive MBA from Cranfield School of Management. After that, I kind of started getting into the devil side of things, and that's where, I became an entrepreneur. So that's been my sort of journey.
What excited you to keep working in this segment for such a long period of time? Because like we have seen so many industry, be it finance, e-commerce, retail, all these industries have boomed a lot over the years in India and generated huge amount of wealth for so many people. Semiconductors obviously is a big market, it also generates a lot of money, but it kind gets very boring at times. It becomes very much tech driven. So what kept you stuck to this industry? What made you decide that I'm going to build in this particular space as a service provider, and then you started building some of the products also?
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, just to going back to the beginning, as I said, like, I kind of started my career as it comes. I didn't know, I just wanted a job at the beginning. But then slowly, when I started understanding things, I realized that today, whatever technology revolution we are talking about, 90% is because of the hardware. And the core of that hardware is all to do with the semiconductors, right? If you look at for the last 78 years, anything that has happened, that's basically because of the semiconductor and the chip industry, right? If you look at carefully, there are two things that have happened in this industry, in the entire technology sector. One, we have increased the processing power, and the second, we have increased the communication speed, right? So because we have so much of processing power and we have so much of communication speed that we can do, and everything else can be connected together. That's what we call it as an IoT and all of that, right? And all the things that we are talking about, AI, ML today, and the rest of the applications that we are talking about, these are all the byproducts of what has happened with the processing speed and the communication. So in essence, what we are talking about is semiconductor is a core of the entire development. So I was very fortunate to be in this industry, and I thought, okay, by accident or fortunate enough for me to be in this field, luckily I've ended up in this field, and I thought of remaining. I kind of remained.
But why this then US, China, and they always keep fighting for this chips and all? Like I keep seeing this in the news. Also, we also see that there's a demand for chips and all is very less. Like also manufacturers are also might be in the good numbers, I believe. If the demand is higher, people might be manufacturing. Is there any limitations that people keep fighting? Is there any limitations that demand is high, but supply people keep shouting that we don't have a supply? And the pricing game, everything, so many on geo-economics, it keeps on working. Why it is like that?
So, I mean, the demand and supply is this is kind of goes on, every time, it swings alternate every time, whenever there's a demand, there's a supply issues. Whenever there's supply is more, there's no demand. This seems to be the change that everybody has gone through. So is the semiconductor life cycle as well. I mean, if you look at carefully for the last few years, there were a shortage of automotive supplies,
Okay.
automotive chips. And now all of a sudden, the automotive companies have invested so much in this kind of area. And again, now there is a lot of supply and there's a demand issues, right? So it kind of goes in, I mean, this is a global macroeconomics issues, and it goes on.
Is chips manufacturing is also somewhere related to silver also?
It is not silver. It's a silicon that we talk about it. There are different materials these days, GaN and other materials as well. But so we call this as a sand to silicon. How the sand is made, how the silicon is made out of sand. So there are a lot of components, and there's quite a lot of component physics goes into making the actual the chips. So we call this as a that is where the engineering kind of meets the science together, right? So if you look at the whole chip design process, we have a design phase, then there's a fabrication phase, then there's a packaging phase, then there's an actual EMS phase, which is electronic manufacturing services. So 90% of the company that what we see, they're all actually design companies who own the architecture, who own the product, everything, right? And then they send it to a fabrication. So that's why most of the companies are called as a fabless companies. The fabrication is something like what the companies like TSMC, Global Foundries, they do it. And then from there, the chip comes out. So once a chips comes out, how you mount those chips onto the board, that's what the packaging. There's a huge art and science involved in the packaging. These days we call it as a 2.5D and the 3D packaging aspects of it. And then these things will actually get into a board and transport into an actual product, which is what the electronic manufacturing services we are talking about. In India today, a lot of these packaging and the EMSs are quite prominent. And there is quite a lot of, even in recent, Modi government has invested quite heavily on the OSAT side. And also there are a lot of companies are on the EMS side as well. And we are slowly getting into the fabrication. Fabrication is something that is a very, very complex. That's where the engineering kind of meets the actual science. And that is something that what India needs to buckle up. And hopefully we will be there at some point.
Like, who is the biggest manufacturer and exporter of chips as of now, and why people export chips from those particular countries? For what all use cases they export? Because chips use case might be different for different countries and manufacturing levels.
So in terms of the ownership as concerned, right, the chip ownership as concerned, a lot of the companies are in the US. US is definitely the clear winner. That is where most of the innovation and R&D happens. And from a manufacturing point of view, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is called TSMC. They do 60% of the the actual fabrication. But I think if you look at from a global chip war perspective, I think today I would say America is a clear winner, and then next China is picking up quite a lot, and rest of the world is kind of catching up. Europe was there, but I don't think that they have the similar capacity what they use.
How is India doing in terms of manufacturing, or be it, is India exporter also of chips?
They are trying to, but not at the moment. We are importing quite a lot on the chips. So we want to be self-sustainable. That is why government is spending a lot of money and effort into the semiconductor industry. I mean, thanks to the current government, they are really investing quite a lot. And there was an initiative in 96, 97, I guess. There's a place called Tumkur in Karnataka. So they actually wanted to make a chip factory at that point. And also, I think when Kapil Sibal was the information and information minister, I guess, right?
Education minister.
2006, 2007-ish also, there was some initiatives in terms of having a chip design factory.
But it never became big, right?
Never realized. Never realized. Maybe I don't want to get into the details, but for some reason it never got the attention. But now I think they are realizing because of the global chip war. And if India wants to become a self-reliant, it is very important to, have semiconductor, ecosystem developed.
In terms of numbers, actually, any numbers where like India export this amount of, people spend this much money to import this much of chips in India? Are you aware?
I don't have I used to know the actual statistics, but it is in billions.
Okay.
Billions to $1 trillion. Because we need chips for everything. Whatever you take, right from your watch to the phone, to the cameras, to everything that we talk about, right? And we need the chips, right? Otherwise, the entire control system and then the data processing stuff that happens within the thing that we talk, right? Right from, like, for instance, the device that we own, communicating to the actual transmission onto the YouTube or to the media, you have tons of chips, right?
We're full of chips then.
We're full of chips, right? Like, let's say if we are talking, our voice has to convert into an actual meaningful data, right? There are some voice coders, and that is going into the chip, go through the chip, and then there is a processing that happens. And once it is processing, there is a transmission that happens, in terms of the communication. So there are some kind of a modulation that happens within the chip itself. So there's quite a lot of stuff. Everything that we think about in terms of processing to the communication, that is all happens through the chips.
Interesting. And in the technology perspective, over the years now, since every other sector has a use case of AI and we are seeing so many of automations, whether this sector has that kind of like automations, or we call as any kind of involvement of AI as a use case for either can be manufacturing or can be while implementing on the service level or providing any kind of assistance to both the parts.
Yeah. So, I mean, automation has been there for quite some time. Automation is a process that has there right from the beginning of the technology journey. It is there in a different magnitude at the stage. But yeah, so if the AI/ML, we are currently doing chips for the artificial intelligence and machine learning to increase the horsepower, etc. But can the AI/ML can take over the chip design process? Not at this stage. We are, I think, at least another 5 to 6 years away from it. This is based on my knowledge. But on the software side, yes, there has been already some low-level programmers are not required. AML has kind of taken over. But from the chip design perspective, there are some pockets, especially in the back-end area. So there are some areas that where AML can already doing some significant impact. But the overall chip design, can the AI can take over today? No. So hopefully not for the next 5-6 years.
Interesting. Like when did you started the time from the time when you started? Like obviously you're seeing lot of transformation in the industry. What is one thing which you realize that this is one segment which can grow very big in the semiconductor space or chip space, be it anything, from the time you started, and you are seeing it constantly growing from there?
So, there are two phases. One is the application phase and the other one is the actual technology phase. If you talk in terms of the technology phase, when we started, we used to have chips which are done at 180 nanometers technology. It's about how the transistors are mounted onto the masks.
Okay.
That's what the technology that we're talking about. And today we are talking about 1 nanometer, 2 nanometer, right? We have actually thinned down so much that even the electrons cannot move from one side to another side. We call it as a tunneling in physics. Even that is not happening at the moment, and we really have to create a bump to move from from one side to another side, which we call it as a FinFET technology. There's a lot of technological evolutions that have happened. So we call this also as a Moore's law, which is basically trying to keep 1.8 to 2 times of the transistors in the same size. That means there is a lot of work has happened in terms of the transistor level circuitry, where you are thinning down and then trying to keep those many number of transistors into the same integrated chip. So that's the technology space. There's a lot of advancement has happened, and nowadays we are talking about a different architecture. One of the architecture that we worked on was the Van Neumann architecture, where control path and data path were involved. And today we are talking about in-memory computing, and then people are also talking about the quantum computing aspects of it. So there's a lot of technology evolutions have happened. And then also from a application perspective, there are various applications. Earlier we were doing chips for a smaller applications, and nowadays we are talking about AML applications where each chip is not, we not only call it as a system on chip, which is almost like a solutions on chip. And these days, people are talking about multiple dies, and all these dies are coming together to make a system, and it's a very, very complex. For instance, 10 years ago, if I talk about a chip which has like 1 million transistors or 2 million transistors, that used to be a big ones. And we are talking about the last chip that I taped out probably involved was 12 billion transistors, excluding the memories.
12 billion transistors in one chip.
In one chip.
And what would be the size of the chip?
The chip sizes are small. As again I said, the technology has evolved so much from 180 nanometers to 1 nanometer, 2 nanometer technologies. So we have actually compacted, we have thinned down the the whole process so much that you don't really see this. For instance, just to give you sheer size of what the technological revolution is, when 1906 or 1907, when the ENIAC, which is an electronic numerical and calculator, this is basically a calculator to do just a 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Those days, they were using it for some code, decoding the code in external codes, and that had about 1.5 sizes of this building, just a one computer, which consists of what we call it as a vacuum tubes, which were like a grandma's pickle jars, right? So those were like a transistors. Transistors were called as a vacuum tubes, which had like a cathode and an anode.
Okay.
A glass, which is more like a pickle jar, right?
I've seen this in movies and somewhere.
Correct. Yeah, old movies you probably must have seen, and then probably if you look at it, so it's like the cathode ray tubes, like that. They used to have a vacuum tubes. So there was a huge power was supplied. It was required to run that computer, which was only doing probably 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Today,
we have thinned down all of that process, probably doing everything in a small chip. And that was possible because of the invention of transistor. In 1950s, something around 56, the transistor was invented, which is where the semiconductor, sort of physics and the semiconductor world has started. So from there to now, we have made a significant, technological innovations. So you just imagine, like from that 1.5 sizes of this building, right? I'm not exaggerating, right? There's 1.5 size of this building to actually not even a tiny vein is this much. So you amount of size, the power reduction, and the technological revolution that has happened is mind-boggling. So that's what the semiconductor physics has worked on.
Like over the years, again, since the technology improved, but did the skill level of people got improved? Did this sector also attracted lot many people towards the job? And like people, like what kind of people are mostly intake in this sector? Because it is not something like that anyone can join in. It's not a software job, or it's not a QA job where like thousands of people are getting job in this. I think this needs a very particular level of skills. So over the years, like in terms of from I can talk about since the time you started, have you seen the advancement in the skill level plus the job opportunities plus the type of people joining in this industry over the years?
Yeah, there has been quite a lot of changes because see, if you look at probably like 40, 50 years back, there's a lot of revolution on the electrical stuff, not the electronics, right? That time, the electrical engineering, the focused on making the motors and everything were quite popular. And then eventually the electronics take over, and as I mentioned about the component physics and then this IC design. I think since I've come into this thing, in the last 25, 26 years, I've seen a lot of improvements the electronics and communications and the electronics with an embedded systems, and then more focused on slowly VLSI, and within the VLSI, people have started talking about there are various phases as well, like a design phases, verification phases, backend phases. So I mean, along with the the mainstream courses of electronics and communications are electronics with the VLSI. So there's a lot of courses have also come in, like some training courses also for particular areas as well. So there is a lot of evolution that has happened, and these days everybody talking about artificial intelligence for chip designing, right? So there is some evolution that has happened, and now if you look at again, where India is heading towards, right? The packaging itself has got like its own way of um, you know its own way of designing, and people needs to be specially skilled in that area as well. So hopefully, I think at some point we are talking about packaging, all of that as well. So yes, of course, there has been quite a lot of evolution.
Super interesting. But why still India lags behind? Like, is it because of infra, because of money, because of resources? Because I see like the bright minds working across global also they are Indians in this sector. Where did you find that? Like, do you find that where we are lagging? Like, how we can? Because obviously we have seen transformation, it is happening, but still I think as per our capabilities, what India has today, the resources what we have in India, the land which we have in India, we could have done this in a more better way. I think. Like, where did we lagged?
I mean, let's see. If you want to answer from an economic perspective or from a pure technology perspective, yes, we don't have the ecosystem, and we are a developing nation. So this is something that what I was talking to one of my close friend over the weekend as well. So I mean, yeah, I mean, you see, what has happened is, if you look at China, China has invested quite a lot on the manufacturing sector and R&D area, all of that, just like the way Europe and US has done it in the past. And we somehow started getting into the service part of the the technology sector, right? Most of the companies that whatever you see, even the main companies like Intel, likes of Nvidia and everybody, they're actually a service wings of their parents division here. I mean, these days for the last 4 or 5 years, things are changing, but predominantly
it's a service company, you know, right? So we have been serving the world, we have been serving the technologies companies, right? And as is rightfully said, the Indians have gone and made difference to the world abroad. But you know, since we didn't have that ecosystem, right? Even now also, we don't have that you know, that mindset of developing a product. You know, in fact, I was talking to last week. I was talking to one of the billionaire who is also like my mentor, whom I admire the most. He has been in the, you know, electronic manufacturing services for almost 37 years. He has seen from lantern business to one of the biggest business that he has built in India at the moment, and he's also involved in OSAT. And one thing that he was concerned was, you know, the quality of the product that we develop, the mindset that what we have. You know, I think somehow we have this concept of jugaad, just making it work, right? We are not, okay, yes, you know, making it work, you know, on a temporary basis is fine, but like, you know, does it really go into a long-term basis? Would that have the quality that what, you know, what the world requires, right? For instance, you know, I mean, ever since I started building these products for the last 2.5, 3 years, you know, we sort of from services, we are kind of pivoting into the product, right? So, I mean, one thing that sort of appreciates is every time I sit in the flight, how the chip should work, what happens if something goes wrong, right? And every time I'm traveling, you know, what happens, something goes wrong, right? So there are a lot of things that I'm looking at, like, you know, in that kind of places, you know, jugaad doesn't work, all right? So obviously, you know, that quality matters. You know, that is where we need to improvise. And yes, I mean, to coming back to answer your question, yes, I mean, we don't have that ecosystem, and we're slowly developing that ecosystem. And like everybody, we would like to see that India should get into that. And we have the technical skill set, know-how, knowledge, hunger, everything is there. But it's something like, I mean, for instance, like, you know, a lot of things we are talking about, you know, semiconductor at the moment, right? You know, there's a lot of investment that we are doing. Having all this knowledge without having an ecosystem, can we do it? No. It's something like, you know, one mother can give a birth in 9 months. 9 mothers cannot give a birth in 1 month. So there is a gestation period. So I think we have to evolve. But I think we have taken the right steps. India has taken the right step. I believe, you know, 10, 15 years from now, we will be there.
Interesting. So we have an interesting roadmap, I believe, for India then. But what happened recently in the semiconductor market as a whole, like recently developments, any changes or any kind of a transformation thing happened recently?
In the last 4 or 5 years?
I can talk, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of developments that have happened. I mean, again, trying to divide into different areas that, as I mentioned earlier, from a technology nodes, everybody are moving into advanced technology nodes. That's the first thing that everybody is looking at. Nowadays, you know, everyone talks about under 7 nanometer technology, 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer technologies that everybody talks about. And then power is the biggest criteria, all right? And everybody talks about power aware chips. That means, you know, low power chips that everyone is thinking about. Especially if you are looking at a data center, you need to have a, you know, a good less power consumed chips. That's another thing. And from an application point of view, everybody talks about AI chips. AI chips, you know, everyone is working towards a data center. And if you're not talking about AI, even the non-AI companies are talking about AI chips these days, right? So that's another transformation that has happened in terms of the applications, the chip area that everybody working on. And yeah, so these are some of the areas that you know, we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years. That's where the development is. And of course, you know, initially we used to have quite a big chip. We used to call that as a monolithic chips, all right? You know, putting all these things into one chip called monolithic chip. But however, there are some, not everything in the chip, not every aspects of the chip is really required to have that kind of a technology. I mean, the lower the nodes, the very expensive it becomes. Not everybody can afford. So the people have realized that not all the logic that is going into the chip needs to be one you know, technology nodes. So now people are talking about a chiplet integration. That means you have a kind of a sliced version of it. Like some of the the interfaces can be in one technology, the actual processing that happens in another technology, the actual communication that happens on the system side will be another technology. In that way, you can actually balance everything out. So we call it as a chiplet integration technology. And when we bring in all this complexity, the packaging becomes even more complicated, right? So that's why we call that as a 2.5D and 3D advanced packaging technologies that have come into play these days. So I mean, again, things have evolved quite a bit, and hopefully people are talking about a quantum computing in the coming years, where you're not storing. I'm not a quantum expert, but I think just to give you a little bit of where we're heading. Today we are storing all the information in binary, ones and zeros, right? And what these guys are thinking about is to store it in a quantum where you have a 6 bits of information. Every atom that spins, the quantum that spins, it has got 6 bits of information, so that you can store more information in one single bit, and also you can have a kind of see like what is coming in sequence, out of which 6 bits they say like 4 bits is the actual data, and then 2 bits is the next sequence coming in. So yeah, we were trying to kind of make a lot of architecture revolution, and also science to help these engineering aspects work in a more this thing. So these are the different technologies that everybody are working on. So it's quite fascinating. It's a lot of things that we have been looking into. But yeah.
What would be for you actually, you individual or for a company in this sector for the upcoming days or years? Like obviously the transformation, lot of things are happening globally or in India. When you look from your perspective or your company perspective, because you have been in the industry for more than 2+ decades,
Right.
what do you see ki up to 2030, what are things you aim to do in this sector?
So again, like I mainly come from a service background, now slowly pivoting into the product. So if I just take it into a different sectors altogether, from a service point of view, what we have been doing is we have been adopting the way the technology has improved, right? For instance, 10 years ago, we didn't have a concept of verification. 10, 12, 20 years ago, we didn't have a concept of verification. A design engineer was doing both design as well as verification. Now over the years, things have become a bit more complicated, and then we started bringing a lot of software concept into an hardware. So we call it as an hardware verification techniques. And then in the last 10, 15 years, India actually produced a lot of verification engineers. More like a software engineers than the actual real hardware engineers. And now that phase is also going on, will go away, because a Python based verification is coming in, and a lot of these things are automated, as we discussed earlier in terms of the AML. So now again, people need to focus on the technology side. Like, people need to have a lot of domain knowledge, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how do we use some of these tools and technologies to make your chip design better.
So yeah, both horizontal and vertical, integration things that you need to look into, moving forward.
Interesting. I understood a lot about chips today. For me, chips was only about potato chips. But
It tastes better, yes. Yeah.
tastes better. It is not that complicated. So, but understood a lot about the market as a whole, because every other day I used to see this in news, like people are fighting for the chips, but never gone that deep level, because understood that India is gaining that momentum. Government is investing a lot in semiconductors and chip. Every budget has that particular part. And people used to always think that why we are investing this much. But people know in the industry, people know the use case, because everything has a chip. So that is how essential. But coming to more to interesting things which I was saying about you before I invited you was, you kept your name, surname actually, against the name of your village.
Village, yeah.
So usually people either keep it like the grandfather's surname, or we keep it as a ancestor's surname. What made you keep your surname against your village? And where is this village actually? You explained me that also, like where it is situated in India.
So this is a small village close to Davangere. In Karnataka, most of the names are at least in our part of the world, in mid Karnataka, and then a little bit on the southern Karnataka. So we don't use a surname.
It's South Karnataka, right?
South Karnataka, yes. I mean, south to mid, we can call it as. So we don't use a surname. I mean, even though we have a surname or the family names, my family name is Kakanur. And we are actually, I mean, Kakanur is also another village close by. That's where my ancestors are hailed from. I mean, there is a story to it, but I mean, just to cut the story short, we are actually called as a Kakanur families, right? And but in all my mark sheets and all the in schools, everything, it is written as Ranganath KS. S stands for my father's name, in father's initial, and then K stands for Kakanur.
Okay.
So we always use the Ranganath KS. We never usually expand our name.
Then your birth certificates and all had what name?
We didn't have any birth certificates as such, right? I mean, look at the rural Karnataka. At that point, the only way to know that you are 5 years old was you need to touch your ears like this, right? And I mean, every time when I talk to my mother, she tells a different birth dates.
But you know your birth date, right?
It is 4576, but like on the record, it is there as a 4575.
Okay.
Because I joined. My sister was going to year 2. I was in year 1. Somehow I considered as I'm smarter than my sister. I mean, it works in the villages, right? So I was very upset that the teachers were not pronouncing my name during the attendance. I was very upset, and I used to come and complain to my grandfather. And then one day he went and spoke to the headmaster, and he added my name. So I kind of joined directly to the year 2.
I mean, in a small town, in a small village, the year 2 students were sitting like this, and the year 1 students were sitting in the same room. It was a very small, cozy setup school, right? And that's how I kind of joined year 2 instead of year 1, and then backdated my birth. Instead of 1976, they made it as a 1975, so that it becomes easy for the school recording, right?
But now all your ID proofs have 75 only.
75, yeah.
And your name is written as Kempanahally.
Kempanahally, because what had happened is, when I was doing my masters, and somewhere I got the hope that I might be able to travel abroad. And so everybody were applying for the passports, and that was the first time, and I had to expand my name, and then I instead of K, which is Kempanahally, which is actually Kaknur, but then I just started as a Kempanahally, which is my village name, just in case if I become famous one day. So I thought it's better to have my village name.
But didn't you face any problem like when you went for making a passport, then your previous names everywhere might be K?
Yeah, K, just the initial was there. See, never it was there as a Kakanur. It was just only an initial. So I just have to expand that initial. Instead of making it as a Kakanur, we just made it as a Kempanahally. I mean, even now, everybody talks as a Kakanur family, Kaka, something like that, right? From my village perspective, or from the hometown side. But on the passport, it is Kempanahally. And at some point, actually, in fact, when I had my son, which we wanted to expand, we wanted to have it as a Athar Ranganath Kakanur, right? But then again, we have to do a lot of affidavit, lots of things, and we decided not to do anything, just kept it as it is. Right. So all my cousins' names are Kakanur, and my name is.
And then your son's name is now
Athar Ranganath.
Okay.
And my daughter is Nidhi Ranganath. So both of them.
They only have my name as a last name. They don't have a actual family
name.
I mean, that's kind of shading away, slowly these days.
Okay, very interesting. You made it very complicated, just like semiconductors. There's one more thing which I was seeing, like love for the cricket, and obviously you are staying in a country, UK, which invented cricket, though they don't won World Cup. But interestingly, you started a trust called Samaranam Trust. You work with them, or you started with them, something like that. I don't know. And it helps and like blind people, the blind cricket team of India, actually, international cricket team, right? Suppose that. What is that particular thing which I was reading? How did this came into existence?
Right. Okay. So see, of course, I've been playing cricket ever since I was a child. Cricket is something that everybody plays. So even in my hometown, my cousin and I were like some of the good players we had in that
area, part of the village.
So if we go for a batting or a bowling, it's always we have to be there, right? Because we own the cricket bat and ball as well. So that's another reason why
If you will get out, you will take the bat then.
I'll take the bat. So that's the kind of thing, right? So we were very notorious kids. Both my cousin and I we were very notorious, very active kids at that point. We used to kind of not only play beat everybody, during those days, some kind of a roadies of the families in the village. Yeah, I mean, my passion for cricket was always there. Even I played at the university level, and I played a very competitive cricket. I was a very good, decent bowler, right? And then when we went to the UK, we were playing cricket, club cricket. We had our own a club called Maidenhead Vigils, where I used to blog quite a bit, and we played a very competitive cricket. And then introduction to Samaranam happened about 12, 13 years ago. I met Mahantesh ji, who is the founder and trustee of Samaranam. I happened to meet accidentally, and some relations, it connects so quickly within 10 minutes. We had some kind of a language which sort of, we became a brothers within like an hour, and we have kept that relation forever now. And I talk to him almost twice a day. Right? The first call that I make every day is to my mother, and then second call is to Mahantesh.
Okay.
That's the level of affection we have. And he's a wonderful person, right? Being with him is a sort of $1 million feeling that one have in a lot of.
And he stays in India.
He stays in India. He stays in Bangalore. So he built this Samaranam Trust for the disabled. I mean, his motto is to make all the disabled and specially abled people, what we call it, to be a to pay a tax to the country. You are not just sympathizing them, empathizing them, making them independent. So I think he's doing amazingly, and I think what I'm doing is, one part of it is just to help him promote all his activities in the UK. So now I'm a founder, a trustee for the Samaranam International in the UK and Europe. So I take them around everywhere, and we raise funds, we promote cricket. So around like 10, 12 years ago, we had a bilateral series, a first kind of bilateral series of Indian cricket, blind cricket visiting UK. And I was part of that arrangement. And that time
this team is an international team now?
It's an international team. It is, I mean, we are the champions now. It's not even only in international teams. We are the champions. When in, 10, 12 years ago when they came, they didn't even have a proper setup. Some of the guys didn't even have a.
So this comes under BCCI itself now?
And we are promoting to, I mean, BCCI started supporting because, we have been winning a lot. And this comes under the umbrella called CABI, which is the Cricket Association for the Blind in India.
Okay.
The entire promotion is done by Samaranam. All the expenses, everything is taken care by them. So we go and then raise some funds from an external places. And then also BCCI started blessing us recently because our team is doing, wonderful. I mean, we have 2 or 3 World Cup under our belt and 1 or 2, the T20 World Cup as well. And also, women's have won the World Cup, in a very first instance recently.
So we have both the teams, right? Women
and this thing. So for instance, just to give you the scale, like 12, 13 years ago, probably we had about 50 to 60 blind cricketers in entire India. Right? Today we have around north of 10,000.
10,000
people, yes. North of 10.
And all this training people happens, like they go to academy.
It's amazing infrastructure. I think what Samaranam, this is something that what I can talk, standing on the Mount Everest. I mean, amazing actually what Samaranam has done to these blind people, to these aspirants. It's amazing. And all these guys, these are all like sort of a people from a very remote.
That is that cricket only, the ball like this.
A ball has got, it's a rattle sound. And there are some certain rules. Actually, the rules of the blind cricket is probably far more better than the rules of what you see a regular cricket, because here we have this concept of B1, B2, B3.
And also one more category is there for disabled also they play cricket. In
disabled also
that will come and together a team, or that is another different team?
There's another, actually see the overall there is a, I mean I don't understand the full the background of the whole thing. So there is a disability cricket is a different thing, which it comes under the normal disabling. I think this is a purely a blind.
This is completely blind.
Completely blind, yeah. So I was telling that B1, B2, B3. B1 is all about complete blind, B2 is partially blind, and B3 is partially sighted. So, and the way they are actually structured in a this thing, you see, normal cricket, everybody is equal. Here, actually, B1 has to be protected by the B2 and B3. There is something called as a Chakravyuh there.
And each team has all these three category of people.
You have to have it.
And what is the ratio like in 11 team?
I think B1 you need to have 4 players or 3 players, and B2 similarly there is a ratio. Totally 11 players. I think 4 into 4 into 3, something like that.
B1, B3 is the
partially sighted. I mean, they have the tunnel vision, right?
Tunnel vision will be there.
Tunnel vision will be there.
And B1 is completely blind.
Completely blind, blackout, complete blackout.
And they're also playing.
They're also playing, yeah. And it's amazing actually. Some of the players.
I can't imagine like closing my eyes also and to see something and then you.
Actually, it is very easy. You know, if you meet some of these blind people or especially able people, you will see that blind is just a. I mean, the eye is just a vision. It's not about see, just like the way when you play cricket, you see and you touch. See and touch makes the game, right? Here it is hear and touch. It is just that your eye has gone to ears. That's it. And they've got a very good sense, and their concentration levels are very high, and their distraction is too less.
Because they're not seeing.
They're not seeing anything. I mean, you see. I mean, I'll introduce you to 1 or 2 people that I know, and you will be surprised to see that they are far more capable than what you and I are. I mean, especially after seeing Dr. Mantesh and another friend of mine called Shailendra Yadav, who is also like part of this cricket association. They both are amazing, and I mean, I pinch myself every time I talk to them, like whether they are blind or I'm blind. It's not the blind as an eyesight; it's a vision. So they're quite amazing.
Interesting.
And the knowledge what these guys carry, and it's a pure knowledge. It's not like we probably have a mixed views of the world, but they have a very definitive and their own ways of seeing the things.
We also won the recent World Cup also, na?
Indeed, yes. Yeah, the Women's World Cup we have won, and the men also have won like lots of.
How many countries participated in that World Cup?
I think around 6 or 7 nations. From a men's perspective, we have at least again 6 or 7 nations, and India, and again India and Pakistan are the arch rivals. I mean, for instance, like last time when we did one of the IESA game or something, which is like a mini Olympics for all the blinds and disabled. So we had the final match in Edgbaston, right? Pakistan and India were playing, and we were supporting India, and then of course Pakistani so are also supporting the Pakistan team. It's an amazing match, and unfortunately we lost that match by whisker, but that match, if you see, it is actually much better than watching RCB versus Chennai Super King per se. I'm just, I'm saying that level of intensity was there, and the players were probably as good. So I was saying, yeah. So if you look at the cricket matches between the blind, especially the men team, you feel that it's not just only a cricket that's happening. There is some kind of a Chakravyuh there, because the B1, B2, B3 players, so the B2, B3 players has to protect the B1, at the same time, listening to the sound, and also they need to know the positions of where the B1 players are, so that they can protect them, from the ball moving out of through them. So there's a lot of aspects that goes in, not just only a simple bat and ball cricket there. There's quite a lot of strategy goes in.
It's more of a trust on each other a lot.
A lot, yeah. And it's actually, you will feel that they play so cohesively and together, and there's a lot of interaction that happens. It's not like any individual who is playing a cricket. It is actual true spirit.
No one is playing there for century actually.
Yeah, everybody kind of works together to have the game. It's amazing. And some of the players with the ball that is not even pitching this height, and they hit sixes. So we, when Chiplogic was formed, the year 1 or year 2, we wanted to play cricket with them. We had a cricket match in HSR ground. Our team scored. I mean, we just had 10 overs game. So we were very proud that we scored about 68 or 70 runs. And we didn't even have to do anything, right? We were just playing our normal cricket, of course, with the underarm, with the same ball and bat.
But you guys all were normal.
Of us are normal people, and some of us, some of our guys had a lot of confidence on themselves that they could play better cricket than them, and we had about 4 Karnataka stars in that team, and then some local blind cricketers who were just about to come into the circuit. So we played against them, and they finished us in 3.2 overs. 68, 70 runs they scored in 3.2 or 3.3 overs.
3.2 hours.
Yes, that's it. They were amazing. Like some guys are,
And people who are able to see, they have not.
they are not able to. We were like clueless how they are hitting and how they are playing. They are amazing. I mean, they are truly impeccable cricketers. You cannot.
It's very astonishing.
Astonishing. I mean, you should play with them. And now that you talked about the cricket,
I would at least watch it live actually. Sometime if I get a chance, like if they're in Bangalore only, sometime like if I watch for 10-15 overs also. Normal cricket I have never went and watched in the stadium. This also might be different.
This is more fun. This is more fun. And especially men's cricket. I mean, of course, women's cricket is also evolving quite a bit. But especially the men's cricket, it is in a different level altogether. I have a lot of respect and a lot of.
This needs more visibility actually.
There's no disability. Disability is in your mind, to be honest.
Get to know all the things about you coming from a village, naming yourself surname as a village, and then working in semiconductor industry and have the love for the cricket. It was great talking to you. Any last thing which you want to say for the semiconductor space or normal people, like people building from India, the upcoming new generation of founders for building in this space, because this is not something will happen in 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years. It needs patience, empathy, time, all those things. Like what is the one thing we would like to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally entrepreneurship is a wonderful journey. It's a tough journey. You see all season in a day. It's not that easy. And especially if you are a first-time entrepreneur, you go through a lot of humiliation, right? First you will have a self-doubt, and the people around you will doubt, and success doesn't come easily, and there are a lot of different dynamics that comes into play. But in the end, I think there's a lot of satisfaction. And I think one thing that what I request everybody is you respect everybody. You don't have to, you don't, judge people based on their ability or their status or anything. You never know who will come into your help, right? And you need a lot of angels and a lot of blessings, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you never know how things will turns out for you. I think the only motive that one should have is to create employment, right? As an entrepreneur, you should not be working towards becoming rich, right? The aim is not to becoming a rich. Aim is to create an employment. Aim is to make sure that you grow with the society, and then for that you need to be. It's very important. You need to be humble, and then and involving in some of these things like Samaranam and other activities like charitable activities, which will makes you even better. You can stay grounded, and hopefully you can win the race. And coming to semiconductors, yes, there's a lot of opportunities, and we all want India to do well, and I'm sure we are heading in the right path. And today we are not there yet, but I'm sure in 10 years from now, India will hopefully conquer the world. And I mean, again, it's a global economy. No one owns anything going forward, right? And everybody, it's a distributed economy. And I'm sure that everyone will have an opportunity to survive. Yeah, I mean, just if you are aspiring to become an entrepreneur, just go for it. Because the only way that we can change the world is through an entrepreneurship. Because even if you are one person can create a job of 2 or 3 people, you are literally actually especially in an Indian circumstances, you are not only giving an employment for 2 or 3 people,
you are actually feeding 2 or 3 families, because ours is a a kind of a family based setups, right? One person getting a job almost feeding to the family. So I think keep that in mind and work towards it. And I'm sure if I can do it too, you can do it too as well.
Interesting. Thank you so much. It was great speaking with you, knowing about you, and obviously learn about the semiconductor industry as a whole.
Thanks, Rishabh. Thanks for having me.